love and wisdom. And, I really believe that you have so much that you could help with in today's society. And so my mom as well. So I wanted to us to build a platform for you guys. I know y'all not into all of this technology, but
well, we looks like we're gonna have to get
learning
involved
it.
whether we
We're
want to
going to
or
have
not.
to, yes, yes, we're going to have to learn it whether we want to or not. And that,
Marriage is a contract you enter into without knowing the terms, which is, you can never describe marriage as much as that. It is a contract you entered into without knowing the terms. Because why? Even if you date her for so long, there are certain things you are not going to know. But once you get married, things may be a bit different from what you think you know about him or her. That's why the patience comes in, the understanding comes in, the tolerance comes in. Then you can build a relationship.
Relationship things are ongoing things. They can be the same. They can be changed from one season to another. Season meaning 1 year, maybe sometimes 1 month or 6 months from another. What worked 6 months ago is not going to work always at the next 6 months or the rest of your life. So that season has already gone. Just depends on our personalities or how well we grow or how well we accept or change makes the difference in relationship wise. I think the parenting part was easier for me than anything.
That was good already.
yes, it was.
Well, you should have had it on film because I can't do it again.
I did.
No.
The only problem is that your phone is kind of moving a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's better.
All right.
When and how did you meet?
A friend of mine's, Theda Thompson in particular, introduced me to my husband. We met at a meeting, an African meeting. It was an African gathering with mostly Africans there from different countries, organizing to be able to communicate with one another or to do activities. And I was invited to go with Theda. And there was a part in the meeting whereby they asked that anyone who was not an African to leave the meeting. And I thought that was very impolite because you're in my country. I was young and not the type of person you would just tell to get up and leave a meeting if I wanted to stay. And so I stayed, of course, and most people left it. I stayed because I was with Theda. She stayed also. And I think from that point, maybe he thought I was an African woman. I really don't know.
Actually, I was conducting the meeting.
Yes, you were.
I could have asked her to leave. But like she said, I thought she was married to an African, and I knew she was an American. And because the spouses of Africans were allowed to stay. It was African students' meeting election night. And so we wanted to just have the election, and I informed everybody who was not an African. There were many other people here from the US. And I told them that after the election, we are going to socialize together. That is all. I didn't want the election to be contaminated. But I didn't ask her to leave because I thought she was married to an African.
But yet and still, even if he thought I was if he thought I was married to an African,
came and asked.
he did inquire later who I was.
Okay, so I'll turn to
But later on, he came to my girlfriend and asked her to meet me. And I rejected from the beginning, and then he came over anyway. And I said, wow, he has such a nice personality. He's such a debonair in person. He just had a very good personality. So I said, well, have a seat. And he began to talk to me. And now it's 43 years.
So we heard from the couple that told us about meeting at the African students meeting. And then it's interesting because my husband at a certain point in our relationship showed up in my house and after I had told him to leave me alone. So I guess persistence works. that might be one lesson for young men. If you really want it, you have to go for it. If she tells you no, you have to respect no, but then every now and then you have to try to see if that next step, that next opportunity could help to open the door if you let her get to know you a little bit better and see your persistence, respectful persistence. Kobe, you want to talk about how we met?
How we met? I mean,
The short version.
yeah, short version, essentially. You know, before I go on, let me just speak to this issue of right now. You know, there is persistence. Yes, it's a great attribute to have, but you also need to develop that eye, which shows you that even though she's playing hard to get, there are signals emitting that progress, right? So I think that's part of what I saw with her. It contributed to the persistence. And I think underlying all the, you know, all everything was a deep underlying affinity for each other. And so I met her at her cousin's birthday party. And yeah, she kind of shone, you know, she was shining, you know, there was a radiant vibe about her that evening, a vibe of purity, a vibe of warmth, a vibe of, you know, care and concern. And just the way she carried herself really endeared her to me, or me to her. And yeah, I'm not quite sure whether I even collected her number that day, but some way, somehow, we were able to connect, engage, and sometimes it looked like things were going south, but it all worked out. It all worked out, and you know,
13 years.
even Hurricane
13 years.
even the torrents of parents that Hurricane Katrina represented couldn't assail and put asunder what I believe had been ordained. And here we are today. Yeah, so that's my story.
You sticking to it. All right, let's get Cousin Ann up to share the how did we meet. I know your husband is unavailable at the moment, so we're only going to get your side of the story.
My side. Well, it's pretty much the same as his. We met high school sweethearts. Our friends were getting married, and they were in their junior or junior year, or in the sophomore junior year. They were getting married, and we met at a reception, at their reception. And my brother went with me, and my brother went with me. So we met at the wedding reception, and and Shelton saw me there. He was originally supposed to be going with his cousin to a dance, and he was having was breaking up with his girlfriend at the time. And he wound up being at the reception at this time, where I was with my brother that was with friends of ours from school. So I hardly mingled with anybody. I spent the whole evening talking to Shelton. He looked good, he smelled good, and you know, I knew the family, but I didn't know him. So I don't know how he introduced himself, but we were in school. We had the same homeroom teacher. And I think that's how he introduced, you know, came up to meet me. But he was originally supposed to be going to a dance, and he got mad with, or he had broken up with his girlfriend. And so he was at the wedding reception and went home and told his mother, "Mama, I found that girl." And woke her up at whatever time it was, early in the morning, to tell him that he had met me. And then when I first met her, she said, "Well, you're the young lady that he woke me up out of a sound sleep to let me know he met his wife." And 46 years later, still here.
Okay.
So that's my side of the version. It's pretty close to his side, though.
Okay. So what was the most exciting part of getting married for you?
The idea of feeling like I was really going to be a grown up. You know, I was going to be feeling independent. I thought I could do it all. I mean, it's a different story when you get into that. When you get to be on your own, it's different. But once you've going into that transaction, into that transition, you feel like, oh, I can conquer the world. I got this. I can do this. So to me, it was like a brand new part of life that I was venturing on. I was going to be married. We were going to live happily ever after. We were going to have babies and rich and the picket fence and everything, right? So it was the part of being independent and not really thinking you were going to need any other adult. Well, thankfully for the adults in our lives, they didn't leave us out there stranded and struggling on our own, because they were there to give us advice. They were there to encourage us. They were there to help us get to know what married life would be all about. My mother-in-law was a great mother-in-law, and so is Shelton. My mother to Shelton, he says, was a good mother-in-law. And they didn't butt in, but they always was available to offer good advice to us. And one of the things that I needed to know from Shelton's mothers was that how he liked things. You know, I was brought up in a family of women. My grandmother and my mother helped raise us. So I didn't have any male figures other than uncles, but they were not that kind of role models for a house full of women. So not having the role model of a male in the home, it was difficult for me to know what they would like or not like. Of course, my grandmother would tell us, you know, you need to learn how to cook, how to keep a good house and be a good wife. But that's not the same as knowing the intimate part of your husband. But my mother-in-law knew that because she had raised him. She knew how difficult he was, how he didn't like leftovers, or how he would do certain things. And she knew those kind of little tidbits or quirky things he would do that I would need to know to help the relationship go through smoothly. Because it also helped when I had my babies. I would live with my mother-in-law. She helped us. My first child had what we thought was colic, and it was just that he was hungry, and he was a baby who needed to be full with cereal or something of substance to keep him sleeping all night long. So after a couple of months of keeping the whole house up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with a crying baby, she stepped in and said, that baby needs some Pablum. Y'all need to give me that baby, and fix the bottle with some Pablum in and gave it to him, and he's been fine ever since. So had she left us alone and we tried to figure it out, we would have had a lot more months of crying babies. So that's a prime example of how she did not leave me to fend for myself. She helped me figure out what kind of foods he liked. When I went to the grocery store, we would go together. Oh, your husband likes these. She showed me how to cook it the way he liked it. You know, so those again were tidbits I wouldn't have known on my own, and may have ruined the many dishes, and still did at the time. But she helped me avoid more dishes ruined because she told me how he liked it and fixed it, things that he liked. Simple, but yet I never fixed them like that because we never ate that way.
And that is
Yeah.
good, because It's a changing world and it's a new generation. And even though we are older people, we're still living. And so we still have a lot to offer. And the young people have a lot to offer us. In the
But I'm going to ask you guys about your advice.
you want to go first? He said, no, go ahead. He wants to hear what I have to say so then he can comment on it. Praise the Lord. And one of the things that advice that I got in marriage, I was marrying a foreigner, someone from a different country with a different experience in life. And so when I inquired about him and when I talked to people about Africans, not many people knew much to say. And coming from a reserved family, my mother in particular, advice wasn't not to marry him, but you don't really know anything about him. You need to maybe take a little bit more time to learn who he is. And the stereotype information was given to me. I was not taught that Africans were as bright and as intelligent as they are. You know, we watched the movies Tarzan and this type of things. And so that influenced what Black Americans thought about Africans. We were told that they did not like us. And so when I met him and began to date him and talk with him and listen to what others would say, I had enough wisdom to know the differences for myself. I'm a prayer warrior. I believe in prayer. And because of the power of prayer, it led and directed me and gave me answers to things I really wanted to know. So I didn't really rely upon what people said. I relied upon what the Lord allowed me to feel in my heart and to know what's right and what's wrong. So at the time, my friend was dating an African. His name was Joe also. She was married to him, Joe. And their marriage was a big rocket. It did not last. And so the things I was looking at with other relationships, I still did not allow them to affect me, because you have to have wisdom for yourself. And so I saw a young man, when I spoke to him, he had a very good personality. He had a kind heart. He was about business. He treated me like a lady. I love the fact that Black Americans, in particular, our men, did not even open the door nor pull a chair out for us. And he was taught that type of behavior. He was taught to respect the woman. And so he gave me that type of respect that I deserved as a woman, and I appreciated that. Later on, as we married and as we were married, we began to find different values, and I began to learn more about him and what he thought about marriage and what he thought made a marriage and what was more important in a relationship. I thought it was love. He thought it was understanding, but still 43 years and we're still saying once they love and once they understand it. So the love and understanding is still mixing to keep a relationship going. The other thing that most Black American women did not know is that they value family. I was told that they did not. I was told that they live in trees. You know, it was just unfortunate for most Americans who did not have the experience of really knowing who Africans were. And our books, our history books were not giving us a true picture of Africa. So now I've met someone who's actually from Africa, and I found it was totally incorrect in the books. And my family in particular seemed to have liked him. My sisters loved him. My oldest brother told me also take time to get to know him because he's an African and you don't know anything about Africans. And I have researched this some, and so maybe you can go a bit slow with it. And my response to him was, well, you're in an interracial relationship and it's working well for you. So let the Lord help me work this out for me. But I had given this prayer to the Lord and said, Lord, I'm asking that you send me a husband. And then I went back and said, Lord, send me a good husband, because I may not know him when he come along, but if you advise me, you direct me, you lead me, I'll follow you. And so when I met him and he began to speak to me and talk to me, I realized that this is who God has sent me.
When I was growing up, my mother was like a woman that many people used to come for advice. She also was a pastor. So she had counseled people for marriage. And when marriages get in trouble, they will come for advice. Many times I would sit around because my mother always made sure I was around so I don't go and do something bad. I was fourth of 8 children and the most aggressive of all. I remember one time she was counseling a young couple, and she said that the family had a week of celebration for a nice wedding. And in the African society, sometimes people live on compounds. So a father may live one side of a compound, the children live in different compounds. So this young lady, finally, everything was going on in the evening. She went to her husband's compound. While they were sitting down talking, she said that she saw a rat. The husband, being proud to say that I've set my house for you to come here, come to me, and say, rat here, there is no rat. And the woman keeps insisting, the bride, that yes, I saw a rat. So the husband said no. And through this argument, he just went on. I think one last no was a hit and hit the lady, the new bride. So while the family was still having a good time, here comes a bleeding bride. And then when everything settled, it was about a rat. So when I say about, love is good, but love is secondary. Understanding is primary. The purpose of that is that if any of them has understanding, whether it's wrath or not, what does it matter? You just got married, a big celebration. But because they didn't understand, and even the bride was afraid of rats, your husband can kill a rat. In his mind, there's no rat. So be a little patient, continue your celebration. And I think at that time, either both of them were a bit tipsy or what, I don't know, because it's been a good time. So what I advise in every marriage is that be patient, tolerance, long-suffering, understanding. My classification of love is that love is like a fire. A flame can burn so strong and all of a sudden quench. So if everything about love, any small thing that you don't understand, you see, he has wronged you some way, he didn't love me, that can translate to many, many, many things that may be a problem. So love is good. You met because you love each other. But however, to survive, you have to have the understanding. Understand your husband, be patient, tolerance, long-suffering, everything the Bible says you need to exercise in your marriage. If you exercise it in your marriage, it transcends into the people you meet on the street. Because people are going to rough you up wherever you go. You meet opposition everywhere you go. But you have to learn how to handle crisis. And marriage is a crisis. And my mother also took time, 8 months. She sat me down almost every day with the Bible, teaching me how to behave. They said that every woman, whether a young child or not, a young girl, must be respected because that young girl is going to grow up to be somebody's mother. If you love me as your mother, love every woman as your mother. Every girl over there has a brother. You love your sisters, you want to beat your boyfriends, you mess their husbands and all that. The same thing. As you love your sisters, love every woman on the street, every young lady on the street. So it allowed me to, first of all, go into meeting somebody, respecting the person first. So my mother was a major influence in how I relate to my wife or how even I approached her.
That was very good. So we actually want to do how much longer. Have you discovered my love language?
Have I discovered your love language?
Or what does that mean to you, love language?
So love language, I mean, it's really what conveys to you that you are valued and you care, right?
Right.
That's how I see it. And yeah, I think yours is being listened to and doing what you want.
Can he talk up a little louder?
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So yeah, I was saying from what I know of Ikea, her love language is being listened to, paying attention to what she's saying, and doing what she likes. In some cases, even if I'm driving somewhere and I think I'm going in the right direction, and she tells me it's together I need to go in the opposite direction. I think she just likes to be listened to and followed. I believe that's very important to her. So I try to do that sometimes. So that is my understanding of her love language. I believe it's making sure conveying that sense of I'm listening to you, I hear you, you write about this, that's how I see it.
Okay. My perception of love language is silent communication.
Silent communication. Okay.
Silent communication.
Mhm.
Once you meet a person and for a while, you will see their moods. And each mood will show you what to expect. And so you react to that in the best way you can. You don't wait for your wife to say, I'm hungry. They say that the best man will leave the last bit meat for his girlfriend or wife. You should know better that you can wait to actually take a little hunger. But if you see that your wife may be hungry, you should try to make sure that she eats. And also, don't wait for her to ask for something. You know what you think is good for your wife. You just try to provide. There's always going to be moods changing, like Mrs. Smith said. It may be going from week to week, month to month, year to year. Nothing is going to be the same every time. But as the moods begin to swing and changes begin to happen, you begin to learn and then to anticipate, what is going to happen. And it's a damage control. You move in a damage control mood. Not all the time you're going to be right, but at least whatever you think will bring peace, will bring joy in the house. I agree with you. Say that sometimes you just have to say, you're right. It makes a big difference. Although your heart may tell you, no, say something, be at peace, just accommodate that. And there's no more conversation, there's no more argument, there's no purpose of extending that conversation. Once you
I'm sorry. I know you're going to be able to air some of this out. Take out what you want to take out.
I'm just
Take
giving
that out. I know it sounds good for
Advice.
the audience
It's
that's
advice,
listening,
yes.
but it ain't real.
It's the
I'm
truth.
sitting here trying my best to be polite. Hallelujah. Glory.
Well,
It's amazing though, because when you're getting ready to do something for the public, we don't always want to be, what is it? How you see through, you want to give your best.
Transparent.
But yeah, you want to be that transparent. But the fact of the matter is that if you're trying to help others, sometimes the things that you've gone through or the
Is what you
difficulties that
need.
you've experienced will be an enlightenment for someone else. And even though it may hurt you a little bit to tell the truth, it's always wise sometimes to let everybody know it was not always a bed of roses and it was not always the peaches you wanted it to be. But through it all, you were able to compromise and you were able to survive the storms that you've gone through. Because in life, you will have some ups and you'll have some downs. There'll be some good times and there'll be some bad times, but you must learn how to compromise with one another. You must know his good points, and he must know your good points. You must know how much he's willing to take, and he must know how much you're willing to take. And at some point on the road, there's a meeting point where you meet and say, okay, let us sit down and reason together, and let us sit down and talk about the situation, and then you'll be able to solve your problems. Sometimes they're never solved. You just allow them to go on. Sometimes you never get a true answer or hear what you want to hear. But I always say, if you have a solid foundation, and I have to come back to who I am in Christ, you know, to not allow the enemy to destroy what you have. I learned that a wise woman takes care of her house, and a foolish one tears it down. But this you do know, if you're his child, he will not allow the enemy to destroy you or to tear your character down, to make you value less who you are. You have to know in this life who you are, whose you are, and who you belong to. And before you belong to anybody, you belong to Christ. He gave you a parent, mother and father, but he is still your father. He's your heavenly father. So when you get into the turnpike in the road and you seem like it can't go any further, then you can just throw it up and give it to him and let him work it out for you. I love to say Jesus will work it out. Jesus will work it out if you let him.
Through ups and downs, roller coaster rides, and everything. So,
yes.
And when they say better in sickness and health, better in sickness and health and wealth and sick, poor or wealthy, then we've been through it all. You know, now we have to do the death do us part when the time comes. So we've been through it all. So what was your love language for Joe?
Actually, love language.
She has not.
All right, moving on.
Move on, baby. Move on, baby. Move on. You know my love language is private.
Okay.
What was yours for me?
That's what I was saying.
That's what he was saying.
Making sure what you need.
And okay.
And
So
yeah.
mine is making sure he loves certain foods. I make sure that I cook certain foods for him. In fact, he always would tell me that I used to. Well, as you grow older, you don't do what you used to do anymore because you're not what you used to be. But he used to appreciate the fact that I always cook a good meal or something that he really, really liked or loved. We always found time to be together, to go places and do things together. And then we could express our feelings to one another, good or bad. And we learn to reason with one another, good or bad. So I think my love language to him is that to make sure that he has a very nice, clean bed all the time and good food on the table. And that's when we stop it.
And I can say, scratch that like she said too.
Your bed is always clean. Food is not always on. I said, as I go older, I don't cook like I used to. But did I not cook for you when we were young? Did I?
Yeah, I cook too.
Yeah, but I cook more than you did. You cooking on that you're old because I can tolerate less work.
I bet every one of you have listened to other people marry, their issues, the problems, how some people even got divorced. So that also becomes an experience that you have to use, because they say that if you're an orphan and when somebody is advising their child, you also listen to it for your own good. So things you hear on the streets, things you hear from other people, use that also as a guide. Sometimes we don't want people to tell us about certain things, but had I known, it's always at last. Bias. Use your judgment, but accept at least something that you can evaluate.
I want to just say this for Ann to speak. One of the things we've had in our lives together is good other marriages, good friendships, such as Ann and Shelton. We've just had through our life people who we could come together, like my cousin Eddie Mae and Joe, and even Ree and Edmund, you know, other couples who are married, and we'd come together with family love and harmony. And that also is very important, that you associate with people who have the same kind of likeness as you do. Even though we played our cards 24 hours, but it was our joy with one another in family love and peace.
Right. Well, I want to say this before we get off, that I appreciate the efforts that are this gathering will create for those that are coming about and getting married. And the reason why I'm so behind it is because there are so many young folks that are coming in that need the guidance, that may not know how to go about getting it. You can always get advice or opinion from somebody, but will it always be the right one? Or will it be the ones you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear? You know, like the ups and downs, okay, he's mad at me today and I'm mad at him because he did whatever, you know. Those are the things that we have to take into account. Maybe not knowing all the ins and outs, but how to resolve it where it doesn't end a completely relationship. You know, there are some things that are deal breakers, but you want to get to the point where they learn to communicate how not to have these deal breakers when they right on the verge of receiving their blessings that God has stored on them for having each other as husband and wives. But if the enemy can come in and destroy that character or their relationship or their love, then he has won. The enemy has won. So I always told my children as they were growing up, from the youngest to the oldest, if you guys have respect and can laugh, respect for each other and laugh with each other, then you love him, I can learn to like him. So I felt like that if you can respect each other, you won't do anything that's disrespectful. If we can learn to laugh at our errors or our silly quirks or our silly things or what our husbands don't like about us, if we can laugh at them together and not feel like we being made to be put down, then we can still have a relationship. If you can learn to love them, if you love them, I can learn to like them. I don't have to live with them. I don't have to interact with married people, you know, I mean, as that couple, you know.
Right.
You know, so that's the parts of those principles.